we should account the body composition in between the weight category to optimize the body composition if weightlifters, because too much fat mass it's no good for best performance at the competition.
Hi Bartosz, it's my pleasure to have you on the Evidence Strong show. If you could briefly introduce yourself.
Hi Alex, I'm appreciated and thank you for inviting me for your show. My name is Bartosz Malak. I'm weightlifting coach at first and scientist I'm at second. My work is dependent from my graduated because I'm graduated on sports. In sports in Poland is something mixed about coaching and sports sciences program as well as neurobiology.
Today we will be talking about young weightlifters, youth weightlifters, and what are the factors that relate to weightlifting performance in young athletes. So why this topic? Why this study?
So first thing, what is happened in science mostly, we find a gray area, something gap in knowledge about very youth, the first stage athletes of weightlifting between 13 and 15 years old, and we plan to determine whether the sex differences in weightlifting performance among youth athletes, and that can be explained primarily by the differences in fat-free mass, because we reading and searching other science paper that shows in sprinting performance the fat-free mass explain around 80% of sex differences. So we want to check that in weightlifting.
Okay, so how did you plan the study?
As you know, probably in science, the power of statistical test is very important. And weightlifting, it's not national sport in Poland, and I think in the mostly country all around the world. So we want to check something in a specific age group. So our study conducted 2 years. We take measurements from the youth in 2020 and 2025, because I have access and I am coach, so I can planning also the training schedule. We taken measurement 10 days before the national championship, and waiting that's long time to engage enough participants. So finally, in our study, we include 53 competitive youth weightlifters, 28 boys and 25 girls. We're from 6 clubs from Poland, and all the participants had a minimum 1 year of experience and train at minimum 3 times per week. So after that, we take the measurement and find some correlation between what we taken, that being the anthropometrics, physical test, body composition, with performance 10 days later at the national championship. And what is important to underline is not just experimental study, it's just a snapshot or some specific time frame. So we know just correlation, and the study create another new question for us, even in higher amount them get answer to us.
That's how it is in research. Could I ask you why 10 days?
Yes, we have 2 reasons for that. First reason is depends of time organization of sports camp, because measurement was taken on the sports camp, and the second time is the time in the training schedule that we are after the 1 day rest and starting with a tapering for a national competition. So probably the athletes in near the maximal performance that 10 days, and we don't want to interrupt the training process just before the championship. So we find some compromise between what we want to do as scientists and what is the best for the athletes and coaches.
Right. And what you mentioned that you did some anthropometric measures. Could you say a little bit more about what you measured and what tools did you use?
So the tools as easy is just types, metrics, some circles. We taken almost all anthropometric dimensions that we can take, because we not really sure which one will be that's fit for the our study. At first, we have height, sitting height, and body mass, as well as body composition, because it is a main topic about that. Searching in literature, we saw that many dimension was measurement in the past. However, there is a lack of knowledge is ratio between the limbs and trunks. So it's another type of measurement of calculation from our measurement that we take, as well as skin fold. Also, we have a questionnaire for parents about adult they meet parents' height to use a predicted adult height based on Camille Roche, because 13-15 years old is quite a specific group when the growth spurs can occur. So from amount of all athletes, we want to take this one that is maturity status is on time. It's not early or late maturity status, however, of time. So because it will much easy to conduct another statistical analysis for that.
What else did you measure? You had some physical test. That's some
Yeah,
functional test, I assume. What was it?
The idea was to use the simplest test that coaches could perform in the future by themselves. So we use hand grip strength, we use quad jump power test, and isometric mid-thigh pull. It was the three basic tests that we use. And what is more tricky for mostly coaches, we adjust results from this test to free fat mass to explain, to determine how the free fat mass also influence the results in that specific test. One more thing maybe I can add about this subject, because we want catch the wide range of sports performance. So athletes that participate in our study is from the first to third places, in range on 4 to 8 places at national team, and lower than 8 places. So we have youth athletes from really high performance to beginners with 1 year or more experience. However, we don't only focus on the high level youth athletes.
Okay, so you had bigger range of youth.
Yeah.
You know, I had an interview with a researcher last week, and that's what we were exactly talking about. His research was about relative age effect. So how the day or the quarter of the year the athlete is born is influencing the performance. And what he said is that very rarely the youth champions and junior champions become senior champions. So it seems like whoever is performing very well as a youth athlete in weightlifting, for some reason we lose them by the time they get to senior athletes. Would you say that it's similar in Poland, or
Not exactly, because we don't have a specific research for Poland. I know the research of the relative age effect in weightlifting. They exactly show what you mentioned, that the most successful athletes at the senior level is the first quarter of the year. However, is not observed at the Olympic level, so which is really interesting. And I think weightlifting in Poland, because it's not the school sport, it's not the national sports, it's the relative age effect, and it's not that common, because many athletes who engage in weightlifting have some experience in other sports. They don't reach the success in other sports, so they start to training weightlifting. So that's a common way in Poland, from where we find for when youth athletes engage in weightlifting training. We also want to control that. In our study, we have a wide range of athletes born in different part of the years. So our specific group is didn't show relative age effects.
interesting?
Even more of athletes engaged in our test is in the second and third quarter of the year, not from the first.
Interesting. Okay, are we ready for the result?
We are ready from results. So how everyone could accept that relative free fat mass highly influence the performance. It's easy, and when we have a more free fat mass, we supposed to reach better results also in a physical test. So what is also obvious, boys shows a significantly higher absolute strength and performance than the girls, and as well in both sexes, free fat mass significantly constantly and highly correlated with all measurement tests. However, when we adjust the results from the competition of results of physical test, the lower body power measured by squat jump was the strongest predictor of best results, and effects and sex depends effects in boys is higher than in the girls in all lifts, in snatch and clean and jerk, and combined in total as well.
So fat-free mass was correlated to weightlifting performance,
Yes.
and both in boys and in girls, and for all the lifts.
Yes, and strongly correlated with performance with in boys than in the girls.
Stronger for the boys than in the girls. And in terms of squat jump,
Yeah, the squat jumps is the best predictor of snatch, clean and jerk, and total results. However, the best predictors when we adjusted it from free fat mass.
all right.
And what it's most interesting about that, the free fat mass don't explain all over the differences between boys and the girls. So there is another area of many questions that we want to answer. We find also one specific things for predictor of clean and jerk, because waist to hip ratio is specific for deadlift and it's mostly specific for boys. So we can have some conclusion from that results that the distribution of body mass in the area hip and leg muscle is important for specific predictor for clean and jerk in between boys and the girls.
So I assume that it's better to have more muscle in lower limbs for weightlifting performance.
Yeah, lower body muscle mass is much more important than, for example, arm mass. However, just some kind of assumption based of just two kind of physical tests, because we have just a hand grip strength, no full arm functional test.
Well, you use the tests that actually are practical and can be used in the normal weightlifting gym environment. So it is not force plates, it is not complicated contraptions where the athlete has to push levers and it's measured on force plates. So this is something the coach can actually do. Did you find anything in relation to the level of the athletes? So were there differences between medalists and athletes who were just starting or were a little bit weaker in their respective categories?
So it's hard to answer correctly for your question, because we suppose that the differences will exist. However, it's not aim of our study and we do not conduct specific calculation of that, and we don't have that enough of participants in each weight category and even in between medalists or non-medalists. We also find something interesting. We don't publish that data. However, in our group, the athletes with lower maturity status perform better than the older ones. So it's something unusual, but we have some explanation for that. I mentioned you that in Poland, weightlifters came from other sports, and probably the less maturity youth athletes who don't selection for the team, for example, in football, handball, or basketball, drop out from the sports, and the possibility of movement, possibility of their performance is underrated, but that coaches from the team sports and they engage in weightlifting, and that's the reason why they are younger in biological maturity point of view, however perform better than the older one for whose weightlifting is first sports.
Interesting. So weightlifting is collecting all the talented, unrecognized athletes.
We want to that. It's one aim for the next year for me is organize in Poland some talent transfer from the other sports to weightlifting, because many sports in Poland starts in a really young age. At about 6 to 8 years old, child engage in team sports, and after a few years they try to searching for something new, and for weightlifting 11, 12 years old is perfect time to start. After everything, we should talk about a main message for coaches and athletes, because the science is important when they explain something or give society, give the population some practical takeaway. So if I have thinking a little bit about that, what is the practical takeaway? One is obviously the free fat mass and lower body explosive power are crucial for performance in youth weightlifting, and we know it from the study from the past. Coaches, I think, should routinely monitor squat jump performance, and if they can adjust it for free fat mass, because in youth and low experience athletes the technique is not stable, so this kind of measurement could tell coaches about development pathway of young athletes with is not indirectly and is not technique dependent, and so it's a nice monitor for a progress of this. This is a hard and tricky question because we know a little bit that the training should be sex specific. However, it's hard to give the final conclusion about what kind of differences that they should incorporate in their training program. But I think the girls should more work on the upper body strength, and as well they can more focus on technique development, because in boys the higher amount of body or muscle mass and higher amount of strength could be the most important factor of weightlifting performance. Yeah, I think it also it's important. It also indirectly came for our study. We should account the body composition in between the weight category to optimize the body composition if weightlifters, because too much fat mass it's no good for best performance at the competition.
Do you manipulate body mass for youth weightlifters, or you just let them grow and then worry about
No,
and muscle mass later?
we don't manipulate it with body mass, especially when we want to decrease the mass. However, we educated about how their nutrition should look like. We have some lectures for youth athletes. We talk with youth athletes because the health nutrition is choose the proper food behavior is the most important thing. And at the very beginning, we don't really know who from the pool of youth athletes will be the next champion. So we thinking mostly about education, now push the athletes to manipulate their weight. However, in some part in older group between under 17 years old, when we talk about national and European championship, if we need to regulate it about 2-3% of body mass, we do that.
I see. Okay, I have two more questions. The short ones. The first one is, what is your favorite lift? Snatch or clean and jerk?
Snatch, definitely snatch.
Why is that?
Two things. It's smooth, and when you try to lift your personal best in snatch, could be like a light load, and compared to the clean and jerk, when you aim to your personal best, it's always heavy.
That's true. All right, and the last question is where people can find you if they want to follow what you do or ask a question. Where should they go online?
The best way to find me is just searching on Google my email address. I have account on ResearchGate. I have notice on my phone from ResearchGate. However, I not checked every day message from that. So I think the email is the best way that people can find me and can contact with me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Bartosz, and all the best for your research.
Thank you.